We're recording.
Hey Kayla, thank you so much for joining me on the Scaling Success Stories. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Drew. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Kayla Sloan, and I am the go-to virtual assistant and outsourcing expert for the online personal finance community. Now, I know we might actually be competing for that title in today's interview. I'm also the founder of 10K which is my flagship program where I teach virtual assistants how to earn a consistent $10,000 per month working online.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I'm working to that 10K per month rate myself. So my first question is, why did you start an online business, and how does your passion still drive your business's growth today?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was kind of a roundabout experience for me. I never set out to just have my own online business, let alone a business at all, really. I was working a 9-to-5 job. I had a lot of credit card debt, student loan debt. I just took on a mortgage right after I graduated college. And so I was just really feeling financially strapped and looking for a creative outlet because my day job was just very monotonous and not very exciting. And so I started blogging for fun about personal finance after discovering this whole community of people who were using their blogs to hold themselves accountable to pay off debt and save money and all of those type of things. And so I started blogging just for fun. I had no idea that people made money online. And when I first heard about it, in fact, I thought it was just a huge scam. And I was like, these people are crazy. And what are they trying to talk me into here? So I did a ton of research and asked a lot of questions. I'm sure my blogger friends at that point just thought I was really annoying, but I asked them everything under the sun and then discovered okay, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to put it to the test and see if it really is for real or if it's a scam. And I started working as a virtual assistant in 2014. And so I've been doing it 5 years now this month.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that a lot of people on this series have discovered, is that they didn't know that you could make money online, the people who started, way back, people like Michelle Schroeder Gardner or Tracy Phobes. And it's they just started out, to help people and to, just get their thoughts on paper or really online. And then they kind of flourished into businesses. So it's great to see that happen with you.
Exactly. Fun fact for you too. Tracy and I are actually from the same small town in Kansas. So yeah,
So
I guess
cool.
it produced 2 online business moguls.
That's right. I've yet to find anyone from my town in Jersey, but I'm keeping my hopes up. So my second question is, at what point did you realize your business was taking off and that you could make money from it?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, when I first started out, I was kind of hesitant about whether or not this was something that was actually legitimate, if it was something that I could actually do to make money. And in my first month in business, I made something like $280 or something, working just a few hours for a blogger. And I continued to work with her for a few months there afterwards, and she actually introduced me to a friend of hers who also needed help. And so it was just a referral, so it was easy for me to land that second client. And now that I had 2 clients, she was like, I don't know how much money you make at your day job, but I'm guessing that the 2 of us are probably, helping you earn a good percentage of that in way fewer hours. She's like, I really could see you taking this full time because you're amazing at what you do. I know lots of other people need your help. This is something you should really think about. So this was a client who kind of mentored me into doing this and taking it more seriously, which is kind of fun and I think a little bit unique. And after that conversation with her, I was just like, okay, I'm going to go for it because this is way more fun than my day job. And so I'm just going to see what happens. If it fails, it fails. I'm not going to just quit my job right now, but I am going to push ahead with my business to see if I can get it to actually be enough of a living to where I could quit my job.
It's very, I don't know, we started out like very similarly in that like you felt like your business was validated in that like 2 to 3 client range where you're making, you know, good money, and then it's like your clients really like told you like you got this. And I remember my first clients, Alex and Lauren, you know, at Create and Go, they said, you know, if we succeed, you succeed. Like that's very much like something, you know, that we believe in is, you know, and that's just like something I think in in like the virtual assistant space and any freelance space really, like if your clients believe in you, like you'll never go hungry, you'll never lose them, and you'll always get that support.
The funny thing is that very first client who really mentored me in the beginning stage of my business, when it came time for me to actually quit my job because my business was earning the same amount of money as my day job, she said, if you quit your job and then you end up losing a client, you're not going to starve because I will send you delivery pizza.
Oh.
And I was
That's so
just like,
nice.
oh my gosh, you know, that was just so touching because at that point we had been working together for a year and we had been friends online before that. So it was just, you know, this friendship that developed into also a business relationship. And just like you mentioned, I mean, that was someone who was really willing to invest in my success just as much as I was investing into her success of her business. So
It's so true. And when I first started, I was working part time. I was in college at the time, so I was working at like campus dining, and I was putting in around like 20 to 25 hours per week, and coming out with 800 per month after taxes. And when I first started, it was 800 per month before taxes and working less. And that was when I was kind of like, oh, cool. I kind of like this online work. Which brings me to my next question. At what point did you realize you were living the life you wanted to?
yes, that's a great question. You know, for me, it's always been kind of a moving target. I am a goal setter and I like to continue to push myself to achieve new things because I get bored easily is part of the problem as well. But I think really once I quit my job and it felt like every day was kind of a vacation. Like it wasn't that I didn't have to work, like I still had work to do for my clients, but it was just like, wow, this this is the life, you know? And since I am someone who kind of grows bored, then, you know, a few months later I was like, oh, okay, I need to do something different. And the great thing about having your own business, especially an online business, is that you can change it, you can tweak it, you can make it different over time so that your business is created around your lifestyle instead of your lifestyle having to be created around your business.
So true. Great point. I remember right after I graduated college, that was when I was like full time. And I was like, oh, I have work to do, but I really don't want to do it. And I was in this like slump for about a week or so, you know, and it's like, okay, like just because you're working from home doesn't mean that like you still don't need to have the same discipline that you had like when you were working it on top of a full time or a part time job. Like, you know, working online is very much labor intensive, and it's a job of love because like certain things you just don't want to do, but you have to do them. And you know, if your bank account's going to get money, and you know, like there are certain things that you have to do.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that.
So my next question is, one of the biggest fears of outsourcing is trusting the people you hire to run your business the way you would. How did you overcome this, and where did you find the right freelancers to help you grow your business?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about, I think, the two of us, Drew, is that since we have the experience of being someone's virtual assistant, at least in my case, it actually made me have higher standards, I think, than some other people would have because I know what should be done and how it should be done and that it should be done correctly. So I think that's very unique in that myself being a virtual assistant, I also have a virtual assistant. And I feel like part of it was really just kind of luck on my part because a longtime reader actually approached me and asked if I needed help when she noticed that I was just like getting overwhelmed and behind on things that I used to do regularly. And the reason I hired her is because she did that to me. She approached me and asked if I needed help because she noticed I was behind on things, which is the exact method I used to get my clients.
It's so cool.
Yes.
And I've had like the kind of referrals is something that I've had all the time on this series. A lot of people, like, you go with someone that someone knows, or, you know, something to that effect, where it doesn't feel like it's as big of a risk.
Yes.
And did you subcontract some of your work out, you know, while you were doing a virtual assistant? Did you find those people like in similar places?
Yes, I still use a subcontractor for some of my tasks for my client work. And then I have a virtual assistant that actually helps with my community and my course and all of those things that I have created as well. So I have kind of a little team now, which is super fun, and kind of helps you, you know, change what you do. So I always tell people, like, if you like the actual day-to-day work, then building a team beneath you may not be the best fit for you, actually, because you're not going to be doing the work yourself anymore. You're just going to be managing the people who do the work. And that's a very different type of activity to do all day, every day. But when I talk with business owners who are wanting to outsource and they're kind of nervous about it, the first thing I tell them is, like, do a trial. Do some sort of like a trial period, a test project, something like that, to see if they're a good fit before you just hand over the reins to your kingdom.
Awesome advice. So a common myth is that as you grow and scale your business, you have to sell your soul to make money, especially when you venture into paid advertising. So how do you debunk this myth in your business?
I actually do very, very little paid advertising. The majority of my business actually comes from referrals and organic things that I've built up over time in the last 5 years. That said, I don't think paid advertising is selling your soul. I think there's a way to do it that is genuine, and you just have to decide, I guess, what your priority is, and then stay true to yourself is really what I tell people. Like, stop comparing yourself to those people that make millions of dollars a month. Okay. Like, yes, we all want to get there. And I understand that, because I want to get there too, but I'm not willing to do it, you know, and sell my soul to get there, and to be something that I'm not, and to not be myself, I guess. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Yeah.
And that it's something that a lot of people have echoed, is the idea of, if you're genuine, if you're authentic, if you're transparent, like, it won't feel like you're, you know, selling your soul. It'll just be that you're helping people, and, you know, Facebook ads, promoted pins, call it whatever, like, they're all the vehicle to help you, you know, help more people.
Exactly.
And that's a great mentality.
I think the other thing too is I struggled for a while with comparing myself to people who offer similar products or similar services in our space. And I finally just realized that it was kind of silly, because there's space for all of us. There's so much work out there. There's so much opportunity. And I finally just realized that the people that come to me are different than the people that come to you, for example, because we're different people and we do slightly different things, even though we're kind of in the same space. So there's definitely room for you, and there's no reason to compare yourself to others or to think that there's not room for you just because someone else has a similar product or idea.
So true. And we could rattle off a bunch of competitors together and still, you know, clarify how we are different. And I think that's important, you know, like, if you're in one of those, like, your money, your life kind of niches, like, you're bound to have a lot of competitors, and a lot of competitors that make a lot of money. And you're starting out and you're like, how can I do this? And it's not easy. Like, anyone who tells you it's easy is lying. You know, a lot of it is mindset, but you do have to say, okay, how am I unique? How can I differentiate myself? And then you have to commit to that. Like, that was something when I rebranded my site back in December, I was basically like a career advice blog before, wasn't working, didn't like it. Okay, suddenly, I'm this business growth scaling sort of a thing. Well, my POV, my point of view is that I freelance for people. I understand the inner workings of their systems, and that's what I'm going to teach you is how to replicate that, right? So I've got my own specific, point of view, my angle, like that's, my niche, and I think it's so important, like you were saying, that you have to understand that there are parallels between what you do and your competitors, but that you can still be unique and offer something that no one else does and be paid handsomely for it.
Mm-hmm. If nothing else, your competitors and yourself, like you don't have the same story. You don't have the same background. You don't have the same life experiences. So if nothing else, you're still going to draw different people into your hemisphere than your competitors do.
So true. So why do you think most people fail to grow their businesses, and what advice would you offer them to keep pushing despite all the setbacks?
Yeah, one thing that I have seen with a lot of my clients and struggled with myself occasionally is the sense of being in control, especially if you start your business as a solopreneur and you're doing everything yourself. It's really hard to begin to trust someone, just like we talked about a little bit earlier, but to kind of scale back and realize that, if you hire good people, if you hire the right people, that it's still going to be a success. And it's actually okay if not everything is done the exact way that you would have done it, right? As long as you get the end result.
So true. And I remember I did a recent interview that went live was with Susie Moore, and she does like all this great publicity stuff featured in every major, outlet out there, and she was basically like, you have to invest in your business. And if that means hiring people a little before the money comes in, then that's what you have to do, because you have to trust yourself that it's gonna come when you do the right thing. And it's so true, is that you kind of have to relinquish some of that control and allow other people to be a part of your success. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I did recently, was I hired someone to manage my Pinterest. Because for months now, like my Pinterest was left like before my rebrand, and I was like, I just don't have time to do this. So I shoved it aside, and I was like, well, this is asinine, because I could be getting page views from Pinterest, and instead I'm just pushing it away. So, if I hire someone, for, in the hundreds per month, suddenly, like, I'm going to get traffic, like, it's going to pay itself off. And it absolutely has. In the first month, she doubled my, Pinterest sessions, and that's what you want, is you want cheerleaders on your team who may not be doing things exactly the same way, but they're getting results. And I always say, results are what I'm after. I don't care about the process.
Right. The other thing I heard, which is a great piece of business advice that I keep finding myself going back to over and over again, is that as a business owner, you've really achieved success in building your team if you show up to your team meeting or your board meeting or whatever, and you're not the smartest one in the room. You're actually probably the least smart one in the room, because that means you have all these smart people around you that are all working toward helping you continue to build your business.
So true. I definitely get that. So let's talk about niching down. So how important has that been, no matter how hard it hurts, to your business's growth and profitability?
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on this a little bit ago, because you talked about how you rebranded, and I actually went through a similar process a couple of years ago. And since I started out, as I mentioned, kind of in the personal finance blog space, and talking about my own personal finances and things like that, but then I realized through conversations with tons of fellow bloggers, readers, friends, family, everyone, that people weren't coming to me to ask questions about their money. They weren't coming to me to ask how to save money, how to pay off debt. They were coming to me to ask about how to become a virtual assistant, or they needed to hire a virtual assistant. That's what everyone was coming to me for. So I was like, why am I wasting my energy and my time putting out this content that people aren't even asking the questions about? And so
So true.
that's when I really kind of just pivoted from personal finance into talking all about, my experience as a virtual assistant and trying to help other people replicate that success.
And that's it's very much something that I'm intimately, familiar with. And I get a lot of people who ask me, how can you start freelancing? How can you start being a virtual assistant? And I think something to always remember is our friend Google, the almighty Google, and, kind of niching down is something that typically tends to work well with Google, because you can become an authority on a certain topic. And that's something that I'm like, okay, if I'm talking about business growth and scaling and outsourcing, it might not be a great compliment to then talk about how to start a freelance business. And so, my response was, okay, I'm going to start, a new site and, maybe another new site because I just feel like going crazy. But like, that's the sort of thing, is that like, okay, like each site is going to have its own, perspective. One's going to be purely on, freelancing. And, I say it's going to be like the dollar sprout of freelancing. And then, the other one's going to be virtual assisting. And like, that's just its own beast. And there's plenty of content you can write about that. And when I eventually create a VA course, that's where it'll be housed. And, like everything has its own kind of like department in your business. And like, that's why like I very much like view my business as having different branches. Like you need to understand, you either serve one audience in multiple ways or you serve one topic to multiple people. That's like a recurring motif that I've had on this series in terms of niching, and it's very much true.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is, what do you attribute your success to and how do you explain it? Do you think the same strategies will help you reach your next monetization goals?
This is a really hard question because it's something I've been asking myself lately. My business growth has actually kind of been flat for the last year and a half or so, maybe even 2 years. But when you look at where the revenue is coming from, that's what's changed. And to reach my initial business goal, I used hard work and hustle. And I think that that can get you to, a nice sized revenue. But if you want to take it beyond that, that's where you have to look beyond just putting in more hours. You have to look at systematizing and creating that team of people that can help do things. And how can you automate certain things, and just really getting more efficient with the time that you have to put into your business. And then also changing those revenue streams to be less of the active revenue that requires time to be put in, and creating more of those passive streams of revenue that can, create revenue while I'm not sitting at my desk doing work.
Yeah. And that's so true. And like, that's why, like, I always tell people, like, you have to look at your P&L. Like, you have to look at where your money's coming from. And that's why, like, and I use QuickBooks for accounting. Like, I break up, like, I know where my money is coming from. So I know, like, if it's affiliate income, or if it's coaching, or if it's virtual assisting, or if it's freelance, like, I break it all up, because I really do think you need to know, like, where your money's coming from, because then I can look at that and say, oh, so if I'm spending a lot of time doing freelance work, and then I look at the hours that I've tracked and say, oh, maybe I'm not earning the most there, but I can look at virtual assisting and say, oh, I'm earning a lot there. I can scale like certain areas of my business that have like a better profitability. And I think that's so true, is that like you really need to understand, how your business makes money, and the total value isn't as important as the elements and the structure of it.
Mm-hmm. which is why I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because if I look at the total number, it looks like things are not changing. But if you dive deeper and look into those categories like you were talking about, then like, yes, I have made significant strides in the last couple of years to really change my business model to create one that is more sustainable for growth over the long term.
Awesome. You touched upon this a little bit in the last question, but to scale, you really need to have a systemized business. What steps have you taken to build those systems, and how do you optimize them?
Yes, great question. I could really talk about systems all day, but I'll try to keep it short because I know we only have a few minutes left. Um, but systems are my jam. I love systems, and I put systems in place for all of my clients that I work with as a freelancer or as an online business manager. But one thing I never did was put them in place for myself and put them in place for my business. And so kind of going back to the drawing board and doing that myself has been a very interesting experience. It's just like the carpenter whose house is like falling down, right? Because they're spending all their time and energy building other people's houses. So my focus right now is building those systems for my own business. And part of that is doing an audit of where my money is coming from and where my time's going, and then starting to strategically build the systems to, basically take myself out of some of those tasks that are taking up the most time for the least amount of revenue, and then passing them off to either team members or finding ways to automate them.
It's so true, though, because I remember with one of my clients, Aliyah from Urban 20 something, she was like, I was continually creating Zoom meetings and then putting it on the calendar for her podcast, and I'm like, hey, like if we could just do like a Calendly plus Zoom integration, like it would all be automated, and then like we don't have to worry about this at all. And we finally got it working in the business, and it's great. Like I'm responding, I'm doing less of that kind of work. And then I look at the coaching side of my business, and I've got no system set up in that whatsoever, and I'm creating all the meetings individually. I'm like, yeah, so like you really need to do this to your own business as well.
Right. Yeah. Practice what you preach.
For sure. So my last question, if you could speak face to face with yourself when you first started your business, what pearls of wisdom would you impart?
Oh, I thought about this one a lot because I thought that maybe I would tell myself that I should have higher rates to start out with and that I shouldn't work with everyone and do everything. But then I look back and think, it was still a good experience because I had the opportunity to learn from every client that I've worked with and every type of work that I've done. And I really don't know that I would be sitting here right now in this position if I hadn't done that. So would I change anything? Probably not, actually.
It's so interesting because I remember when I started out, with certain freelance clients, I was doing, okay, so I was learning customer service. I was learning the inner workings of that. And then with another client, kind of their email inbox was completely different. And I was doing a lot of like affiliate negotiations and things like that. So now like I've gained that as an additional skill set. With another client, I was working, for coaching and kind of understanding that business model. And suddenly, with that knowledge and you really apply it, you're looking at a very good business model because you understand how it works successfully in other business. And that's why I love like the freelancing model. And I always say, like, I'm telling you, like, I want to turn this into a book one day, but like you have to freelance first because you understand how successful businesses operate firsthand. And then you can take those systems and plop them right into your business because they work. And like, it's just this, I don't know like why it's not said enough, but like it needs to be said more and more. And it's great for people with zero business experience.
Mm-hmm. So if you want a co-author, hit me up because I 1000% agree and could not have said it better because literally every client, I've worked with dozens of clients in the last 5 years, dozens. And every single one I have learned things from. I have learned what not to do, and I have learned what to do. And having clients with different types of businesses, just like you mentioned, has given me so much valuable insight and experience and knowledge to be able to take that and A, find more clients when I needed more work as a virtual assistant, but also B, implement them in my own business. And I
Yeah.
know that my own business and my own brand and like my own products would not be where they are if I hadn't had that experience as a freelancer inside the businesses that I've worked with.
Amazing. It's so true, though. So thank you so much, Kayla, for joining me today. Where can people find you?
KaylaSloan.com. That's KaylaSloan.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And, keep on rocking the VA world.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.